Joining me now is Angela Knight, the former CEO of Energy UK. Thanks for coming, Angela. Been quite a few discussions this week on net zero, on energy policy. I've said supposedly some outrageous things in the week. I don't think they're outrageous, by the way. I think I'm saying what most people are thinking. But we're hearing now some noises about the boiler tax being scrapped. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree with scrapping it. You see, to my mind, of course, we've never properly explained what our energy policy is. It just gets snatches, you know, we'll do this, we'll do that. And the perhaps fundamental, we don't have a plan and we've never decided who pays how much and for what. Now, the idea that you can get quite a significant percentage of our housing usefully to transfer to heat pumps is quite right. You can't do 100%, you can maybe do 30 or 40%. It's quite right. But what you don't do is try and penalise those who can't. What you should do is incentivise those that can. And so taking the boiler tax, as we now called it, off the table and thinking about the incentive, I think is a much better idea.
Okay. So we look at our energy policy, as you said earlier. For me, I don't think we've had a really good energy policy in this country in the last 30, 40 years. You know, we're an island built on coal and gas and oil. We've got all these wonderful things. Yet sometimes we tend to import this stuff from other countries. And we spoke about Drax earlier, power station.
Yes.
Perfect example.
Yes. We've made a number of missteps with our energy policy, and actually when we were part of the whole European energy arrangements, that made life worse.
Yep.
Because the assumption was that we would all import and export from each other for gas and electricity and so forth, which sounds fine in theory, but when you think, you know, you have this anticyclone that sits over Europe at this time of year, so everybody's cold at the same time, nobody's got any wind, nobody's got any sun. Well, government can't say, well, I'm terribly sorry, I'm switching off the lights in Dover in order to keep Calais on, can you? So the reality is that we all have to think through our own policy, and we now have to do that rather better. But energy is one big engineering issue, and unfortunately it's dealt with on an emotional bite-by-bite basis. So I'm all in favour of a sort of cleaning up how we produce our energy, of doing a sensible transition to far more renewables, absolutely fine. But you've got to do it over a sensible period of time. You've got to decide how it's paid for, and you've got to stop thinking about, you know, oh, well, we can always use battery storage. You might in 30 years' time. You can't now. You've got to build your backup.
So you say it can be emotional, some of the decision-making. Fracking, that's emotional.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, when anybody comes along and is against fracking, they always produce some horrendous story out of somewhere in the US. They've always done that. Fracking is all about a geological structure underground and whether you've got gas trapped in it, and if you have got gas trapped in it, can you get it out easily? Now, we don't know really whether we can get it out easily because we just talk about, oh, you're going to have earthquakes and all that sort of rubbish. What we should do about fracking is do one sensible, proper trial. All the scientists there, as I say, move the emotion to one side, just see, can we, with the geological structure we've got underneath this country, frack gas? And if we can, we should do it. Oh, can we frack gas sensibly? Because if we can, it means that we're going to reduce our imports and we're more self-sufficient.
So we have Matthew Laza coming on next. He's going to speak about this, and he'll probably get all emotional about earthquakes, and especially in the Blackpool area, and he'll produce probably all the statistics where houses were rumbling. What would you say to Matthew?
Well, that's fine, but if Matthew wants to go away and live in a house, and when he wants heat, he can't get it. If he wants to be in hock to other countries for energy security, he can do so. But most of us don't. Most of us actually want something that's sensible, pragmatic, realistic, and doable. And after all, you know, you can produce all those graphs of what happened in Blackpool. At the same time, if you put a couple of London buses past those same houses, you get exactly the same sort of rumble. Now, I do accept that you need to be very careful in areas of natural beauty where you've got a lot of population around. And that's why I say, let's do one big, proper, scientifically controlled trial and get on with it now.
So, in a nutshell, Angela, why are our energy bills, our gas and electric bills, so high?
And they will continue to be high. And first of all, because it costs money. Even if we just do it the same way as we've always done in the past, the actual price of power stations, of getting whatever is your fuel to the power stations, of distributing around the country is quite significant. And we were in a false dawn when our prices were low. Right now, though, your price is going to continue to be high and may well get higher, because if we are going to pay for all this by the current means, which is putting it on each and every one of us bill, it being the whole of the green agenda being paid for on the electricity part of our energy bill, then you can be absolutely sure that your bill is going to stay high and will get higher. When it was started, which I believe it was Ed Miliband when he was previously Energy Secretary, he was the one who said put it on the bill, and it was a small amount at that time. Nobody will notice. Well, boy, do they notice now. And that's why you need to be honest with the public. You need to be clear with the public that it is not a cheap policy. You need to explain to the public that every time you build 1 unit of renewable, you've got to build 1 unit of backup because the wind doesn't blow all the time, and work out how you pay for it. But just carrying on with setting targets without saying how we're going to achieve it, how we're going to pay for it, is, to my mind, not doing right with the British public.
That's a fascinating discussion, Angela. I'm with you on probably 99% of what you just said, but, coming up next we've got Matthew Laza, who will probably produce some statistics and probably disagree with most of what you said, but thanks for coming.
I'm a pragmatist, though.
Well, that was a very interesting conversation with Angela, and I'm joined by Matthew Laza, former Labour Party advisor, who's going to chat to me now about this, about net zero. Matthew. Yeah. Now, we spoke there to Angela. She raised some very important issues, and I made a comment earlier this week about fracking. Should we frack our gas, yes or no?
No.
Why?
So I was open-minded about fracking. I think we need to be sensible about our move to net zero. We need to realise that we're still going to use fossil fuels for some time to come. It's a question of where we get those fossil fuels. So the issue with fracking is that the experiment in Blackpool didn't work. It caused over 120 earth tremors at the site in Blackpool. It's not as easy to get it here as it is in the US, where they've done it. You fought a manifesto in election 2019, a manifesto to ban fracking, and that's what the government's done.
Okay, let me just put it another way to you then, Matthew. So if we could prove that you could frack safely and economically and provide local people with cheaper gas at no risk, would you support it?
If we could prove that it could be done at no environmental and health risk, then I think the answer is yes. I think, though, that there are serious health concerns. 20 leading medical experts, while the first test site in Blackpool was up and running, wrote in and wrote a letter condemning it and saying that it was, I think, a serious threat to public health. So if we could make it work, I'm open-minded. But it's part of the move to net zero.
But that was
ultimately, we want to stop using fossil fuels.
Let's be honest, but you talk about these earthquakes, tremors, by the way, not earthquakes.
Yeah, I mean, they're not.
I mean, we used to have this in the mining industry where I lived in Nottinghamshire, lots of coal mines, you get the odd tremor. Lots of the workings from the mines in my neck of the woods in Ashfield, in particular, very, very shallow, some 200 or 300 metres deep, used to get tremors all the time.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think people's ability to put up with things like earth tremors has changed since the heyday of the mining industry in the 19th century and early 20th century. I mean, look, I am not opposed to using fossil fuels for the moment, because clearly we cannot move to net zero straight away.
Okay. So what about green levies? We see, I think the average household pays between £400 and £500 on top of their bills with the green levy. I made another comment this week saying that maybe
controversial comments.
No, it doesn't sound like me, does it? But maybe people should be asked. It should be opt in, opt out on their fuel bills to pay this green levy. Would you agree with that?
So,
and would you opt in?
Well, I would opt in. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I would be able to pay a little bit extra. I make sure that my energy comes from renewable sources. But I actually have a plan on the green levies that I believe we should do, which is one that actually quite a lot of the green campaigning organisations are calling for. Remember what the green levy is actually there for. It's there for three things. One of which is it pays for energy efficiency improvements for low-income households, and that ultimately saves low-income households money off their bills, and it also funds the warm home discount, which goes to the poorest pensioners in particular, pays people on pensions credit and some other low-income people. And then, yes, it does help towards the move towards using renewable sources. So what I'd say is that it should actually be taken out of off energy bills, and the things that we want to happen should be put into general taxation. Because I don't think you're going to go to your poorest pensioners in Ashfield, knock on their doors on the Carsick estate and say to them, oh, you can't have your warm discount anymore because not enough posh people have said that they're going to pay the green levy.
Well, but you talk about the Carsick estate in Ashfield. Yeah, we've been
knocked on doors together for
the Labour Party. Yeah, but seriously, when we have knocked on doors, and it's the same all around the country, because I've knocked on doors all around the country in political campaigns. It never comes up on the doorstep, net zero. Why is that?
Well, it does come up on the doorstep sometimes when you've got a red rosette on in certain parts of the country, but I think you could be absolutely honest. Low-income households, it's not, all polls show, it's not their number one concern, because if you're a low-income household, after 13, 14 years of this Tory government, you're having a hard time, and you're dealing with the cost of living crisis. So, of course, you're not going to say it's your number one issue when you're trying to pay your bills, which is why I think the Green groups are right, that some of the green levies should be moved off your bill into general taxation, which is much fairer, because lower-income households pay more in energy bills as a percentage of their income, and therefore they're paying more green levy as a percentage of their income.
We'll stop you there, Matthew. It was a great conversation with Matthew, as always. But now he's back, Gary the Cabbie. We're going to join him straight away. Well, Gary, it's been a while. Yes. Nice to see you again, my friend. New people coming into the industry, Gary. Is it a problem at the moment? Is it still an attractive proposition to be a black cab driver?
I would say it is it's a great living, and it's, you know, for youngsters, I would advise it. I do think that to do the knowledge, people do need a bit of help. Like it is like a university course, because it does take for so long, and it's very, very expensive to do.
I mean, I can remember, you know, back in the day when we used to watch these programmes on black cab drivers, when they was tested on every street, I think it was, in London. They had to know every address, basically.
It's no differently.
No?
No, the exams are still the same.
Wow.
They're trying to shorten it down a little bit, because of, obviously, with mayor cards stopping certain roads and closing certain roads. So they are trying to slow it down a little bit, but it's still exactly the same.
And how long have you been driving, Gary, now?
This is my 15th year.
15th year. And any plans to swap, or is that it?
No, I'm too old now, Lee. No, hopefully this takes me through to when I hopefully can retire.
Well, look, there you go, Gary the Cabbie. He's back in the cab. It's been a long time since I saw you, Gary. Thanks for coming on once again.
Thanks,
and hopefully next week we'll get more common sense from Gary.
Excellent.